The chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of translation devices. Day One stood at the speaking platform, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, representatives from 200 different species watched from their seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and many had features that defied simple description. But all of them were focused on the human envoy and the data projection floating above his podium. As you can see from these updated stellar charts, Day One said calmly, the mineral deposits in question are located in neutral space. The Krethik Empire's claim is based on territorial maps that are over 300 years old. These boundaries are no longer recognized under current Galactic Council law. High Arbiter Velcor rose from his seat. The Krethik was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with purple scales that caught the light. His forearms flexed as he pointed one clawed finger at Day One. You dare question the ancient claims of the Krethik Empire? Your species has been part of this council for barely 50 years. We have held these territories for millennia. Day One remained perfectly still. His face showed no emotion. I question nothing, High Arbiter. I merely present the facts as they exist under current law. If the Krethik Empire wishes to contest these facts, there are proper legal channels for such disputes. The Krethik delegation erupted in angry clicks and hisses. Several of them stood, their scales shifting to darker colors that Day One recognized as a sign of aggression. He had studied their species extensively. He knew that this display was meant to intimidate him. It did not work. Ambassador Hyan Ji, seated in the human delegation area, watched Day One carefully. She had worked with him for 15 years. She knew his tells, the tiny signs that showed what he was really thinking. Right now, his left hand was completely relaxed at his side. That meant he was not threatened. That meant he was in complete control. Proper channels? Velcor's voice boomed through the chamber. Your kind speak of laws and channels, but you know nothing of strength. You know nothing of what it means to hold territory through blood and honor. He descended from his platform, his heavy footsteps echoing. Other delegates shifted nervously. Physical confrontations were rare in the council, but not unheard of. Day One did not move. He watched Velcor approach with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the entire proceeding. The Galactic Council was founded on the principle that law, not strength, would govern our interactions. Humanity has abided by this principle since we joined 50 years ago. We expect the same from all members. Velcor stopped just a few feet away. He towered over the human envoy. His forearms spread wide in a gesture that combined mockery with aggression. You expect? What does humanity expect? You come from a single planet. You have no ancient empire, no warrior tradition. Your people are merchants and diplomats who hide behind words. He leaned down, bringing his face close to Day One's. You are soft, weak. The chamber held its breath. Delegates from hundreds of species watched to see what the human would do. Many of them had similar thoughts about humanity. The humans had appeared 50 years ago, joining the Galactic Council with polite requests and careful treaties. They traded fairly, negotiated patiently, and never threatened anyone. In a galaxy where most species had long histories of conquest and warfare, humanity seemed almost childlike in their peaceful approach. Day One met Velcor's eyes. His voice remained level. The mineral rights remain in dispute, High Arbiter. I suggest we adjourn and allow the Council's legal committee to review the evidence. You suggest? Velcor's secondary arms shot forward. One hand grabbed the front of Day One's diplomatic jacket. The other drew back. I will show you what the Krethik Empire thinks of your suggestions. The blow came fast. Velcor's second right hand struck Day One across the face with enough force to snap. A human neck if it had landed differently. Day One's head whipped to the side. He staggered but did not fall. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth, a thin line of red against his pale skin. The chamber exploded in shocked gasps and shouts. Several delegates leaped to their feet. Others activated their communication devices. The presiding elder, an ancient being whose species had founded the council, hammered his resonance staff against the floor. Order! Order in this chamber! High-N-G was already moving. Her fingers flew across a wrist device, entering a code that she had hoped she would never need to use. An emergency beacon transmitted directly to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. In the 50 years since humanity had joined the Galactic Council, this code had never been activated. Day One slowly straightened. He brought one hand to his mouth and wiped away the blood. He looked at his fingers, at the red stain there, and then looked back at Velcor. His expression had not changed. His voice, when he spoke, was still calm, still controlled. "High Arbiter Velcor," he said softly, "you have made a grave mistake?" Velcor laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. Mistake? The only mistake was allowing your weak species into this council. Perhaps now you will learn your place. The Krethic delegation joined their leader's laughter. A few other species, those who shared the Krethic views about strength and dominance, added their own sounds of approval. To them, this was a long overdue lesson for the humans who had presumed to speak as equals. But not everyone was laughing. Elder Morthos, who had observed the council for over 8 centuries, felt a chill run through his ancient body. He had noticed something that others had not. In 50 years, across hundreds of disputes and thousands of negotiations, no one had ever struck a human representative. There had been insults, certainly. There had been threats. But never violence. Why was that? High-N-G's wrist device chimed. She looked down at the screen. One word glowed there, transmitted from Earth across vast distances of space. Acknowledged. She looked up at Day One. Their eyes met. She saw something there that made her blood run cold, even though she had expected it. Day One gave her the smallest nod, then turned back to face Velcor and the assembled council. "This session is concluded," the presiding elder announced, his voice shaking slightly. "All delegates are to return to their quarters while the council reviews this ... incident." Day One bowed slightly, a gesture of respect to the elder. Then he walked toward the exit, his steps steady despite the blood still trickling down his chin. High-N-G followed, along with the rest of the human delegation. As they passed, other delegates stepped back, giving them space in the human quarters. Day One finally allowed himself to sit. He accepted a cloth from one of his assistants and pressed it to his split lip. High-N-G stood nearby, her arms crossed. "They have no idea," she said quietly. Day One shook his head. "No, they don't. How long?" "Earth Command will mobilize immediately." "Transit time." He paused, calculating. 4 days. Maybe less if they use the fast routes. High-N-G moved to the window. Outside, ships from countless species moved through the space around Harmony Prime. The galaxy continued its business, unaware of what was about to change. 50 years, she whispered. 50 years of playing the part. "It was necessary," Day One replied. He stood and joined her at the window. "We needed to learn, to understand, to prepare. And now?" "Now," Day One said, his voice still calm, still controlled, "they will learn the truth about humanity." The news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within 6 hours of the incident, every major news network across 200 species had BROADCAST footage of High Arbiter Velcor striking the human envoy. The image of Day One, blood on his face, became the most shared piece of media in galactic history. On the Velan homeworld, Ambassador Tae Yang sat in his office and watched the footage for the 20th time. His assistant, A young villain named Kess stood nearby with his sensory stalks quivering with confusion. "Ambassador," Kess asked, "why is this such a significant event? Violence in council chambers is rare, yes, but it has happened before. Species have gone to war over less, and species have forgiven more. Why does this feel different?" Tae-Yang did not answer immediately. Instead, he opened a communication channel to all human civilians in Vrillin space. There were over 10,000 of them, merchants and traders and teachers scattered across a dozen planets. His message was simple: begin evacuation procedures. You have 48 hours. Kess's stalks went rigid with shock. "Ambassador, surely that is excessive? The Vrillin Consortium has no conflict with humanity, and the incident involved the Krethic Empire." "Not? Have you ever noticed," Tae-Yang interrupted gently, "that in 50 years no one has ever hit one of us before?" The question hung in the air. Kess thought about it. His species had excellent memory, and he could recall dozens of council sessions where tensions had run high. There had been that incident 12 years ago, when a Dravik representative had physically attacked a Quellan ambassador. There had been the riot 30 years back, when 3 species had come to blows over fishing rights. Violence was not common in the council, but it happened. But Kess realized he could not remember a single instance of anyone striking a human. "Why is that?" he asked slowly. Tae-Yang smiled, but it was a sad expression. "That is the question everyone should be asking, and soon everyone will have an answer." Across the galaxy, on the neutral merchant vessel Prophet's Dream, Captain Rena was having a similar conversation with her crew. The ship carried mixed cargo and a mixed crew representatives from 7 different species, including 2 humans. One of her crew members, a hasp named Tever, gestured at the newsfeed. "The Krethic are celebrating. They are saying their High Arbiter showed proper strength. They are calling humans cowards for not responding immediately." Rena looked at her 2 human crew members. One was a young engineer named Bae-Ora, the other an older navigator named Jae-Min. Both had gone very quiet since the news broke. Both had stopped smiling. "Jae-Min," Rena said carefully, "should I be concerned?" The human navigator looked up from his console. His eyes were distant. "Captain, I need to ask you something. In the 3 years I have served on this ship, have I ever been anything but polite?" "Of course not. You are an excellent crew member. Have I ever threatened anyone? Ever been violent?" "Never." "Have I ever even raised my voice in anger?" Rena thought about it. "No, you have not." Jae-Min nodded slowly. "Remember that, Captain. In the days to come, remember that about humans. We are polite. We are peaceful. We smile and trade and negotiate." He turned back to his console. "Remember that we choose to be those things." The way he said choose made Rena's scales prickle with unease. Not in the High Council archives. Elder Morthos sat surrounded by data screens. He had lived for over 8 centuries, serving the Galactic Council for most of that time. He had seen species rise and fall. He had watched wars begin and end. He had thought he understood how the galaxy worked. Now he was not so sure. He pulled up every file the Council had on humanity. Their admission had been unremarkable 50 years ago. They had arrived from a planet called Earth, a world in a distant spiral arm that no one had previously explored. They had basic faster-than-light travel, peaceful intentions, and a desire to trade. The Council had welcomed them, as it welcomed all species who met the basic requirements for membership. More HOS read through report after report. Humans were excellent traders. They were patient negotiators. Their diplomats were well-trained and respectful of other cultures. Their merchant vessels were efficient, and their crews were friendly. In 50 years, they had established colonies on 23 worlds, all in previously unclaimed space. They had signed trade agreements with over 100 species. They had never started a conflict. They had never threatened anyone, but there were odd details. Small things that Morthos had never really considered before. Human security forces at their embassies were always minimal, never more than a dozen personnel. But those personnel were always incredibly fit, incredibly alert, and they moved with a precision that suggested extensive training. Human colonies were always described as peaceful agricultural or mining operations. But orbital scans showed that many of them had defensive capabilities far beyond what civilian settlements should need. Human ships were classified as merchant vessels, but their engine specifications suggested they could outrun most military craft in the galaxy. And there was the matter of Earth's military history. Before joining the Council, every species had to provide detailed records of their development, cultural, technological, military. Most species had extensive records of wars, conquests, territorial disputes. It was simply how life evolved: competition, conflict, growth through struggle. Humanity's military records before Council admission were sealed, classified. When asked about it, human representatives had simply said that those records were not relevant to their current peaceful intentions. The Council had accepted this explanation, but why had they accepted it? Morthos dug deeper. He found a file buried in the restricted archives. It was labeled Deathworld Protocol, species number 1847, Humanity. He had never seen it before. His access credentials should not allow him to open it, but when he tried, the file opened immediately. Someone wanted him to read it. The first line made his ancient blood run cold. Warning: the following species has been classified as originating from a Class 12 death world. Approach with extreme caution. Class 12. Morthos knew what that meant. It was the highest danger classification. A planet where everything was trying to kill you, where the environment itself was hostile to life, where survival required becoming an apex predator. There were only 5 known Class 12 death worlds in the entire galaxy. All of them had produced species of incredible danger, species that the Council had carefully monitored, carefully restricted, carefully feared, and somehow humanity had come from one. Mort HOS continued reading. Earth's gravity was higher than standard. Its atmosphere was corrosive to many species. Its weather systems were violent and unpredictable. Its fauna included predators that could kill with venom, strength, or pure aggression. Its plant life was often toxic, and humans had not just survived there. They had thrived. They had become the dominant species. They had covered their entire planet with their civilization. The file contained analysis after analysis. Human bone density was significantly higher than most species, a result of high gravity. Human muscle tissue was incredibly efficient. Human reflexes were faster than 70% of known species. Human endurance was unmatched. They could run for hours without stopping, a trait that came from their evolution as persistence hunters. Persistence hunters. Morthos understood what that meant. Humans had evolved to chase their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They did not need to be faster. They did not need to be stronger. They just needed to never give up. That was the key word. Persistence. Patience. Never giving up. Morthos thought about the human diplomats he had observed over 50 years. Their endless patience in negotiations. Their willingness to endure insults without response. Their ability to wait years for trade agreements to be finalized. He had thought they were simply a peaceful species. Now he realized they had been hunting. His communication console chimed. Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. Other species were discovering similar information. The restricted files were opening for everyone. Someone was ensuring that the galaxy understood what was about to happen. Morthos opened one message from a military analyst of the Quellan Confederacy. We have detected massive fleet movements from Earth's solar system. Repeat, massive fleet movements. Ship counts exceed 2,000 vessels. We did not know humanity had 2,000 military vessels. We thought they had fewer than 100. Recommend immediate defensive posture for all systems near Krethik space. 2,000 ships. Where had they been hiding 2,000 ships? Another message, this one from a science station near human space. Urgent report. Multiple previously undetected installations coming online throughout Sol system. Energy signatures suggest military fortifications. They have been there the entire time, masked by civilian operations. How did we miss this? Morthos felt fear for the first time in centuries. Humanity had been hiding in plain sight, playing weak, playing peaceful, learning about every species in the galaxy while revealing nothing about themselves. And now, because one arrogant fool had struck their envoy, the mask was coming off. He tried to compose a message to the council, but his hands were shaking. Finally, he managed to type out a simple warning. We have made a terrible mistake about humanity. Whatever happens next, we deserve it for our blindness. Fleet Admiral G1 stood on the bridge of the ECS Indomitable and watched her fleet assemble. Through the view screen, 2,000 warships hung in space like predators waiting to strike. They were beautiful and terrible, each one built with technology that the galaxy had never seen humanity possess, because they had never looked. Admiral, her first officer reported, all fleet elements are in position. We are ready to jump on your command. G1 nodded. She was a small woman by human standards, barely 5.5 feet tall, with gray streaking through her black hair. She looked like someone's grandmother. The other species would have dismissed her as harmless dot. That was the point. Communications, she said. Open a channel to Earth Command. Channel open, Admiral. This is Fleet Admiral G1. Hammer Protocol is now active. All pretense is ended. All restrictions are lifted. She paused, feeling the weight of 50 years of deception lifting from her shoulders. Earth's true military assets are deployed and ready. We are bringing the hammer down. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the former city of Sol, Minister Soong-ho received the Admiral's message. He stood in a command center that had been hidden from the galaxy for half a century. Around him, hundreds of officers worked at stations that tracked every human asset across known space. Confirm Hammer Protocol, he said quietly. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with intensity. Activate all sleeper assets. I want full intelligence on Krethik Empire defenses within the hour. And send the message we prepared to the Galactic Council. The message reached Harmony Prime 30 minutes later. The Galactic Council was in emergency session, trying to determine how to respond to the incident. Representatives from 200 species argued and debated, each offering their opinions on human weakness, Krethik aggression, and proper diplomatic procedures. Then the screens in the chamber came alive. Minister Soong-ho's face appeared, larger than life, looking down at them all. Members of the Galactic Council, he began. My name is Minister Soong-ho. Until today, you did not know I existed. I am the Director of Earth's Military Liaison Office, a position that your intelligence agencies never discovered. That is the first lesson I wish to teach you today. The chamber went silent. For 50 years, Soong-ho continued, humanity has participated in this council as merchants and diplomats. We have smiled. We have traded. We have negotiated. We have been polite and patient and peaceful. You believed this was because we are weak, because we lack strength, because we are a minor species from a distant world. He leaned forward. You were wrong. The screens changed. Images appeared of human military installations throughout Sol system. Massive orbital fortresses that had been disguised as civilian stations. Shipyards that had been building warships while pretending to construct merchant vessels. Training facilities on Mars and Luna, where millions of soldiers had been preparing for war. We are not weak, Sung-ho said. We are not peaceful because we lack the capacity for violence. We are peaceful because we understand the true cost of war better than any species in this galaxy. More images. Historical records from Earth. Cities burning. Oceans poisoned. Millions dead. Weapons that could destroy entire continents. Humanity's own brutal history laid bare for the galaxy to see. We came from a death world, Sung-ho explained. We evolved as apex predators. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times before we finally learned to cooperate. We have fought wars that would horrify you. We have developed weapons that we pray we never have to use again. And when we came to the stars, we made a choice. The images changed again. Human diplomats meeting with alien species. Trade agreements being signed. Medical teams helping other worlds. Teachers sharing knowledge. We chose peace, Sung-ho said. We chose to be the species that learns, that trades, that helps. We chose to build bridges instead of walls. But we never forgot what we were capable of. We never stopped preparing for the day when someone would force our hand. His expression hardened. That day has come. High Arbiter Velcor of the Krethic Empire struck our envoy. He drew human blood on the floor of this council. He believed we would accept this insult because we are weak. He will learn the truth. The screens showed the human fleet, assembled and ready to move. 2,000 warships, each one larger and more advanced than anything the Krethic Empire possessed. For 50 years, we have endured insults. We have been dismissed, underestimated, and treated as lesser beings. We accepted this because we believed in the promise of this council that law and reason would govern the galaxy. But when violence replaces law, when strength is valued over justice, then we will show you what strength really means. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral G1 listened to the minister's message along with the rest of the galaxy. She felt a grim satisfaction. The truth was finally out. No more pretending. No more playing weak. Dr. Kyung-min, she said, addressing the xenanthropologist attached to her command staff, your analysis was correct. The galaxy was not ready to accept us as equals. We had to make them underestimate us. Dr. Kyung-min was a thin man with glasses that were purely decorative. He preferred their old-fashioned look. He had spent 30 years studying every species in the Galactic Council, learning their cultures, their fears, their weaknesses. Yes, Admiral, he said. Every species we encountered had evolved in relatively stable environments. They had never faced the challenges we faced on Earth. They do not understand the level of violence and adaptation required to survive. Class 12 Death World. If we had shown our true capabilities from the beginning, they would have united against us out of fear. And now? Now they are divided. The Krethic Empire stands alone. Others will watch and learn. Some will fear us, yes, but they will also respect us. On Harmony Prime, Envoy Day 1 watched the minister's broadcast from his quarters. His lip was still swollen from Velcor's strike, but he wore the injury like a badge of honor. Hyen-Ji sat beside him. Do you think they understand yet? She asked. Some do, Day 1 replied. Elder Morthos sent me a message. He found the Death World protocol files. He is beginning to see the full picture. Can the others? They will learn. The Krethic Empire is about to receive a lesson they will never forget. And every species watching will understand that humanity's peace is a choice, not a weakness. His communication device chimed. A message from Admiral G1. Envoy Day 1. We require formal authorization for military action against the Krethic Empire. As the injured party, the authorization must come from you. Day One looked at the message for a long moment. His finger hovered over the authorization code. One touch and the facade of 50 years would end completely. One touch and the galaxy would see humanity as it truly was. He pressed the button. Authorization confirmed, came the Admiral's reply. We jump in 30 minutes. Across the galaxy, human assets activated. Merchants who had been quietly gathering intelligence for decades suddenly revealed themselves as military intelligence officers. Peaceful mining colonies activated their hidden weapon systems. Trade ships unlocked military-grade sensors and weapons that had been disguised as cargo containers. The galaxy watched in horror as they realized how thoroughly humanity had infiltrated their space. How many humans they had welcomed without suspicion. How much information they had freely shared with species they thought were harmless traders. On the Krethic homeworld, High Arbiter Velcor received reports of the human fleet's approach. His military advisors assured him that the Krethic armada could easily defeat 2,000 human ships. The Krethic Empire had 10,000 warships, all crewed by warriors bred for combat. But Velcor felt a cold pit forming in his stomach. He remembered the look in Envoy Day One's eyes after the strike. The complete absence of fear. The calm certainty. You have made a grave mistake. For the first time in his life, Velcor wondered if he had. The human fleet began its jump toward Krethic space. As they entered the FTL corridors, Admiral G1 made one final broadcast to the galaxy. We did not want this. We hoped we would never need to show you what we really are. But you have forced our hand. To the Krethic Empire, you wanted to see humanity's strength. Now you will learn that our greatest strength was always our restraint. That restraint ends now. The fleet disappeared into FTL, racing toward their destination faster than any known drive system should allow. Because that was another secret humanity had kept there. FTL technology was far more advanced than anyone knew. They had been holding back in every possible way. Not any more. The human fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of Krethic space exactly 4 days. After High Arbiter Velcor struck Envoy Day One, the speed shocked every military analyst in the galaxy. The fastest known FTL drives required at least 2 weeks to cross the same distance. Humanity had made the journey in 4 days. It was the first hint of how much they had been hiding. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral G1 studied the tactical display. The Krethic Empire had mobilized its entire fleet. 10,000 warships hung in defensive formations around their key systems. It was an impressive show of force. The Krethic had been warriors for thousands of years. Their ships were built for brutal, close-range combat. Their tactics emphasized overwhelming aggression. Against most species, it would have been enough. All ships, G1 commanded, assume attack formation Delta 7. Prepare weapon systems. Broadcasting rules of engagement now. Throughout the human fleet, captains received their orders. The rules were clear and absolute. Disable, do not destroy. Target military vessels only. Minimize casualties. Show overwhelming force, but exercise maximum restraint. The Krethic fleet moved to intercept. Admiral Vartok, commander of the Krethic Armada, sneered at his tactical display. 2,000 human ships against his 10,000. The humans were clearly insane. All vessels, attack formation, he ordered. We will crush them quickly and send their wreckage back to their pathetic homeworld. The first engagement happened near the Krethic colony world of Korthax. 3,000 Krethic warships moved to engage 500 human vessels. The Krethic ships were massive, heavily armored, bristling with plasma cannons and missile batteries. The human ships were smaller, sleeker, faster. Captain Subin commanded the lead squadron. She watched the Krethic formation approaching and allowed herself a cold smile. Weapons free. Target their engines and weapon systems only. Remember, we are not here to kill them. We are here to teach them. The human ships opened fire. The weapons were like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Focused energy beams that cut through Krethic shields like they were not there. Kinetic rounds that struck with precision, disabling ship systems without breaching hulls. Electromagnetic pulses that fried electronics without harming the crew's dot in 15 minutes. 3,000 Krethic warships were drifting in space, powerless and helpless. Not a single ship had been destroyed. Not a single Krethic had died. They were simply defeated, completely, utterly, effortlessly. Admiral Vartok stared at his display in disbelief. 3,000 ships, gone, just like that. What? What kind of weapons are those? His tactical officer whispered. Vartok had no answer. He sent a message to the homeworld. Unknown weapons technology, far beyond our capability, requesting immediate reinforcements. Captain Subin broadcast a message to the disabled Krethic ships. This is Captain Subin of the Earth Coalition ship Resolute. Your vessels have been disabled. Your crews are unharmed. We will send rescue ships to ensure you have life support and basic necessities. We are broadcasting the footage of High Arbiter Velcor striking our Envoy on all frequencies. We want you to understand why this is happening. Throughout Krethic space, human forces demonstrated the same devastating efficiency. Every engagement ended the same way. Krethic ships disabled. Krethic warriors humiliated. Not through death or destruction, but through complete and overwhelming superiority. Pilot Jae-min flew a human fighter in the assault on the Krethic shipyards at Veltar Station. His squadron faced over 100 Krethic interceptors fast, aggressive craft designed for dogfighting. The Krethic pilots were skilled. They had trained their entire lives for combat. They used tactics refined over millennia of warfare. It did not matter. Jae-min's reflexes were faster. His endurance was greater. His ship was more responsive. And he had something the Krethic pilots lacked. He had evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill you. Where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. Where persistence and adaptability were survival traits. He disabled 17 enemy fighters in the first 30 seconds of combat. His wingmates performed similarly. The Krethic interceptors were simply outmatched at every level. Krethic pilots, Jae-min broadcast, you fought well, but you are fighting a species that evolved from pursuit predators. We can track 100 moving objects simultaneously. We can react in milliseconds. We can fly for hours without fatigue. You never had a chance. At the Galactic Council on Harmony Prime, the emergency session watched the battle footage in stunned silence. Every engagement showed the same pattern. Overwhelming human superiority. Complete Krethic defeat. And throughout it all, humans were exercising restraint that seemed almost cruel. Elder Morthos understood what humanity was doing. They were not trying to destroy the Krethic Empire. They were trying to break their spirit. To show them that their warrior culture, their pride, their strength, all of it was meaningless against a species that truly understood war. They are being kind, Morthos said quietly. They could be killing them all. Instead, they are teaching them humility. On the third day of the offensive, Admiral G1's fleet reached the Krethic homeworld. The remaining Krethic forces had gathered there in a desperate last stand. 6,000 warships surrounded their home planet, ready to die defending it. Admiral Vartok sent one final message to the human fleet. We will not surrender. We are Krethic. We are warriors. We will fight to our last breath. Admiral G1's response was broadcast on every channel, so the entire galaxy could hear. We know you will fight. That is why we are giving you one final chance. Stand down. Accept defeat. Your courage is noted. Your pride is acknowledged. But this ends now. The Krethic fleet attacked. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, every single Krethic warship was disabled. Some had been struck by precision weapons that destroyed only their propulsion systems. Others had been hit by electromagnetic pulses that shut down all their electronics. A few had been boarded by human special forces teams that secured the ships without firing a shot. Not one Krethic ship was destroyed. Not one Krethic warrior was killed, except for a handful who chose suicide over surrender. The human fleet positioned itself in orbit around the round Krethic homeworld. 2,000 warships with weapons armed and targeting systems locked on every major city, every military installation, every government facility. The entire planet held its breath. Admiral G1 made one final broadcast. People of the Krethic Empire, your fleet is defeated. Your military is broken. Your High Arbiter's pride has led you to this moment. We could destroy your world. We could wipe out your civilization. We have the weapons. We have the will. But we will not. On the surface of the Krethic homeworld, billions watched the human ships hanging in their sky like swords waiting to fall. We are not destroyers, Go-1 continued. We are not conquerors. We did not come here to take your territory or enslave your people. We came here to deliver a message. And that message is this. You struck one of our envoys. You drew human blood. You believed we would accept this because we are weak. You were wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. For 50 years, we have been patient. We have been peaceful. We have been kind. We have been these things because we choose to be, not because we lack the strength to be otherwise. Today, you learned the difference between weakness and restraint. You learned that the most dangerous opponent is not the one who threatens you, but the one who could destroy you and chooses mercy instead. High Arbiter Velcor sat in his command center, watching the human admiral's broadcast. Around him, his council members looked broken. Their warrior pride had been shattered in 3 days of effortless human dominance. You have 1 hour to respond, he once said. Agree to our terms or face the consequences. And know this, if we must return, we will not be so gentle. Velcor looked at his 4 hands. He remembered striking the human envoy, remembered the satisfaction he felt at putting the weak human in his place, remembered his laughter as Day 1 had stood there, blood on his face. He had thought he was showing strength. Now he knew he had been a fool. Prepare a message to the human fleet, he said quietly. We surrender. 3 months after the incident, Envoy Day 1 returned to Harmony Prime. The wound on his lip had healed, leaving only a small scar that he chose not to remove. He wore it as a reminder. As a symbol of the day, everything changed. The Galactic Council chamber was full. Every species that held a seat was present, along with observers from dozens of minor civilizations. But the atmosphere was completely different from the last time Day 1 had stood at the speaking platform now. When he entered, every delegate rose to their feet. Elder Morthos watched the human envoy walk to his position. The old being noticed how Day 1 moved fluid, controlled, aware of everything around him. How had they missed these signs? How had they not seen that every human moved like a predator? The presiding elder struck his resonance staff. This council is now in session. We gather today to address the resolution of the conflict between humanity and the Krethic Empire. Ambassador Hyen-G of Earth will present the terms of the settlement. Hyen-G stood. She looked at the assembled delegates and saw what she had always hoped to see: respect. Not the condescending tolerance they had shown for 50 years, but genuine respect born from understanding what humanity truly was. Members of the council, she began, 3 months ago, High Arbiter Velcor struck Envoy D1 in this chamber. The Krethic Empire believed this act would demonstrate their strength and our weakness. Instead, it revealed a truth that we had hoped to keep hidden a while longer. She activated the display. Images appeared showing human military assets, now openly acknowledged. The massive fleets, the advanced technology, the training facilities and research stations. For 50 years, humanity has participated in this council under false pretenses, Hyun-ji said. We pretended to be simple merchants and diplomats. We allowed you to underestimate us. We let you believe we were weak. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate strategy. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Several species looked uncomfortable. They were realizing how thoroughly they had been deceived. We did this, Hyun-ji continued, because we learned from our own history. On Earth, humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We nearly made ourselves extinct multiple times. And finally, we learned a terrible lesson, that strength without wisdom leads only to destruction. She changed the display to show Earth's history: wars, genocides, nuclear weapons, environmental collapse. The darkest moments of human civilization laid bare for everyone to see. When we came to the stars, Hyun-ji said, we made a choice. We would not repeat the mistakes of our past. We would seek peace, not because we were incapable of war, but because we understood its true cost. But we also knew that the galaxy might not accept us if we revealed our full capabilities. So we hid them. We studied you. We learned about every species in this council. And we waited. Elder Morthos spoke up. You deceived us for 50 years. How can we trust you now? Hyun-ji met his eyes. Elder Morthos, in 50 years, did we ever lie about our intentions? Did we ever betray a trade agreement? Did we ever break a treaty? We hid our strength, yes, but we never hid our character. Everything we said about wanting peace was true. Everything we did to build cooperation was genuine. The only deception was letting you believe we were weak. And the Krethic Empire? Another delegate asked, what are your terms for their surrender? The display changed again, showing the settlement agreement. Delegates leaned forward to read it, expecting harsh penalties and crushing reparations. Instead, they found something unexpected. The Krethic Empire will issue a formal apology to Envoy Day 1, Hyun-ji explained. High Arbiter Velcor will personally deliver this apology in front of this council. The Empire will pay a modest fine to cover the cost of our military deployment. They will accept council observers to ensure they comply with all existing treaties and laws. And that is all. Silence filled the chamber. That is all? The question came from a Vrillan representative. You defeated their entire fleet. You could demand anything. Territory, resources, submission. Why do you demand so little? Hyun-ji smiled, and it was not a cruel expression. It was almost sad, because we do not want to conquer them. We wanted to teach them, to teach all of you. Strength is not about how much damage you can do. It is about how much restraint you can exercise when you have the power to do anything. The doors to the chamber opened. High Arbiter Velcor entered, walking slowly. He looked diminished somehow, though his physical form was unchanged. His scales had lost their vibrant color. His forearms hung limply at his sides. He walked to the center of the chamber and stood before Day 1. Envoy Day 1, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. I struck you in anger and pride. I believed that might made right. I believed that your peaceful nature was weakness. I was wrong. On behalf of myself and the Krethic Empire, I apologize. We have learned a hard lesson. We will not forget it. Day 1 looked at the being who had struck him 3 months ago. He saw genuine remorse in Velcor eyes. He saw humility that had not existed before. "High Arbiter," Day One said quietly, "I accept your apology. I forgive you personally for the strike. But my species will never forget what happened here. We will never forget that you forced us to reveal what we truly are. That is a consequence you will carry forever." Velcor bowed his head. "I understand." After the formal session ended, delegates gathered in small groups, discussing what they had witnessed. The galaxy was still processing the revelation of humanity's true nature, not in one corner. Elder Morthos found himself talking with Dr. Kyung Min, the human xenanthropologist who had studied every species in the council. "You studied us," Morthos said. "For 50 years, you studied all of us. What did you learn?" Dr. Kyung Min adjusted his decorative glasses. "I learned that most species are fundamentally decent. They want peace and prosperity. But I also learned that most species have never truly known hardship. Your worlds are garden worlds compared to Earth. Your histories have wars, yes, but nothing like ours. You do not understand what drives a species to develop the weapons we have, the tactics we use, the restraint we practice. And now that we know the truth, now," Dr. Kyung Min said, "we can all move forward with honesty. No more pretending. No more hiding. Humanity is what we are, species that survived a death world, that fought through thousands of years of self-destruction, and that finally learned to choose peace over war. We are the most dangerous species in this council because we know how to be dangerous. But we are also the most committed to peace because we know the alternative." On a transport ship heading back to human space, young Boyo-Ra sat in the passenger compartment writing. She was the engineer who had served on Captain Reena's merchant vessel. Now she was returning to Earth, her cover as a simple mechanic no longer necessary. She wrote an essay, thinking about everything that had happened, about how the galaxy had viewed humans, about how that view had changed, about what it meant to be strong and choose kindness anyway. She titled it "The Weight of Our Choices," and submitted it to the Galactic Education Network. Within days, it had been read by billions across hundreds of species. One passage particularly resonated. "My teacher once asked why humans hide our strength. I said it is because we do not want to use it. Every human child learns about the wars of old Earth. We study the weapons that nearly destroyed us. We memorize the death counts from conflicts that raged for years. We learn these things not to glorify war, but to understand its horror. And when we grow up, we carry that knowledge like a weight. It makes us patient. It makes us kind, because we know what happens when we are not." On Harmony Prime, months after the settlement, new species began approaching the Galactic Council with applications for membership, and each one specifically requested human advisors to help with the admission process. Envoy Day One found himself busier than ever, helping young civilizations navigate the complex politics of the Council. But now, when he spoke, people listened. When he made suggestions, they were taken seriously. When he said something was important, it was believed. One day, a young delegate from a species that had just joined the Council approached him nervously. "Envoy Day One," the young alien said, "I have a question. Your people are clearly powerful. You could demand so much. Why do you work so hard to help others? Why do you spend your time teaching us instead of ruling us?" Day One thought about the question. He touched the small scar on his lip, remembering. "Because," he said finally, "we learned a long time ago that the greatest measure of a civilization is not its weapons or its conquests. It is what that civilization does when it has the power to do anything. We choose to help because we can. We choose to teach because we remember when we needed to learn. We choose peace because we understand war." He smiled at the young delegate. "That is what humanity offers the galaxy. Not just our strength, but our memory of what it cost us to gain that strength. We share those lessons freely so that others do not have to learn them the hard way. Years later, historians would mark the incident as the turning point in galactic civilization. Before, the Council had been governed by the principle that all species were roughly equal, with differences in technology and culture, but no fundamental superiority. After, everyone understood the truth. Some species were more dangerous than others. Some had evolved in harsher environments. Some had capabilities that others could never match. But the lesson humanity taught was not about dominance. It was about choice. The most dangerous species in the galaxy had chosen peace, had chosen patience, had chosen to help rather than conquer. And that choice, made freely, despite having every ability to choose otherwise, changed everything. In the council chamber, where High Arbiter Velcor had once struck Envoy Day 1, a plaque was installed. It read, "Let this place remember the day we learned that strength and kindness are not opposites, that the most powerful choice is often mercy, that true civilization is measured not by what we can destroy, but by what we choose to protect." And beneath those words, a simple statement that every species in the galaxy came to understand. They struck a human envoy, and humanity showed us what it truly means to be strong.